Okay, we'll call the January 31st, 2022 National Services meeting to order. Just for, I think, why don't we move the fertilizer bids up to above the supervisor report, just so he doesn't have to hang around all day. And with that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda? John, second by Barb, or not Barb. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to opening the bids.
At least we got two.
Yeah. Both from United Prairie. Okay, first bid. Modified potash rate to 125 pounds per acre across all acres. So phosphate 54,340 total pounds. Potassium 48,920 total pounds. Total bid $48,220.
Is that the low one we asked for? We asked for low, high.
I am not sure.
Well, I guess we'll know in a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So the other one is, okay, so what we have is this one will be as per the soil test company's recommendation. And it has phosphate the same, 54,340 pounds, potassium 114,440 pounds, for a total of $75,402.45. And they do not recommend this one, and I'll let him speak as to why.
So the soil test, we got a new batch of soil tests from this last year. I don't know the parameters of the soil test results, what they had recommended, but given the soil test we have out here from the county farm, the potassium levels, they're very hard to stay in the soil. So the recommendations coming from Pro Ag on that is 300 pounds of potash across all the acres. You cannot build that soil up. It just will not happen. That potash, it will not bond to that soil. It'll wash its way through the soil. So the modified bid, I put 125 pounds an acre across all the acres, and that is for 250 bushel corn or 85 bushel soybeans. Either one for that crop year. So it's not depleting the soil, it's going to help maintain the crop, and that's it. The phosphate, if you look according to the maps on there, it's all variable rate spread. Depending on what fields they are, some fields call for more than others. But any questions?
What was the rate on the phosphate?
So like the South 40, it only calls for a couple areas out there in that field.
Okay.
You see, that's the potash map. That's everything calls for 300 pounds. And then the four big fields out there, you can see how it's kind of broke up.
Yeah,
You know.
it's kind of patchwork, isn't it?
Right. And the same thing over here by the courthouse.
Yeah, you're right about, I mean, the CEC is low on it, so it's not gonna hold the phosphate, or the
Right.
potash.
How many acres is total out there?
It was like 392.
How much?
392.
Okay.
So how many, well, we don't really have how much phosphate's gotta go on.
Well, each map it's broken down
Is
on
the,
each map.
is the potash VRT too?
It's set at 300 pounds,
Yeah.
so that's why,
So it's flat spread.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, in the spots that were low, they were called for like 100, 125, 150.
Yeah.
So this, I just left it as a blanket because those acres were insignificant.
Uh-huh. It's always been my thought that, you know, like the potash, 150 pounds an acre is kind of just a bare minimum, you know?
I didn't want to get carried away with fertilizer prices being where they're at today.
Yes,
So what was he recommending again in the bid?
125.
Oh, so you think we need a little more potash?
Yeah, I know. Even at $48,000, that's, from what I've been seeing, that's not a bad price.
It's $123 an acre.
Is it possible that we could raise, you know, I mean, the amount that what we like, you know, to 150 pounds of potash on the bid?
I think what we can do is if we accept their bid, then at this, at the price that they're giving us, that we can then adjust the rates if we wanted.
Yeah.
I mean,
We can amend it.
cause he's given us a high and a low,
Or purchase additional?
yeah. I mean, how, I mean, you're saying 125, he's saying 150, are we, is 150
You want
going
me to
to,
do the math for you?
well, is 100,
Change it now?
is 150 going to work in this soil, will it?
Yeah, you're fine. You're
Okay.
fine in that soil, yeah.
Okay, cause that was the concern, that we didn't want it to just wash through.
Right.
Right.
What does it have to bond to? What are you talking to?
Well, CEC, it relates to the amount of how well the soil can hold on to the nutrients. If you have a high number, like
Cation
exchange.
okay,
But-
so go ahead.
But if it's a low one, stuff just seems to go through, which
So we have a low
yeah,
because of the soil type to
Yeah.
begin with,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what,
we aren't able to really build up much, you know, over the years. So, especially when it comes to potash, you know. But phosphorus is a little more binding, it can stick around it better. But it's just been my, you know, experience over the years that, you know, you gotta at least put 150 pounds on to just maintain what you're taking off, you know.
Yeah, do we remember what we were given the yield for the last couple of years, we remember? Anybody? I mean, that's, yeah, those figures just in and out for me.
Yeah.
do you know what we put on last year? Does anybody remember how much potash we put on last year?
If he had it in his records, they would have.
I didn't bring that with me. I
Okay.
didn't. It was a blanket spread though, I can tell you that. I think it might have been. It might have been a blanket of 100 or 125 maybe.
Yeah.
It was a blanket spread, I do know that.
It would be interesting to know what the yields were in 21 and 20, because those were both decent growing years.
Maybe we'll get their hands on that fairly easily.
I could
I
look
can
at
go
my
and-
desk.
You think you've got it?
Sometimes I go out pretty.
Is Jill listening to us?
No.
Do you have your laptop with you, Jill?
I don't.
Okay. It's all right, I'll print them. They're not gonna be in color.
It doesn't-
Doesn't matter. I'm gonna go grab them.
Yeah, all we need is numbers.
For 21 and 20.
I don't know if we those were in the minutes or not, because
Well, she'll have actual,
I know, but as I'm sitting here thinking, mm, I don't know how we work that, but it's okay for us to know, but I don't think the rest of the world needs to know. You know what I mean, publicly. But then again, when
It's
you do
public
business
knowledge.
with the government,
Yeah.
you gotta be transparent. Wake up, Paul. You look like you're in deep thought.
You gotta put a snow
If I
plow
change
on
it to
the
150 pounds an acre, it'd be 52,320.
Then the phosphorus stays the same.
Phosphorus stays in.
I guess, at that rate, how's that gonna figure for yields that you would expect? I know
never know.
it's shot in the
How much
dark.
is it gonna rain, you know?
Well-
Is it gonna rain?
With perfect conditions, the 125 versus 150, what are we looking at potential for yield increase?
Well, I think it would help the beans, you know, more than hopefully the corn, but, I don't know what their cropping rotation is, sometimes they, do corn on corn, but,
That's an additional $10.
Basically what you're saying is that
50
150
cents a
pounds,
acre.
that's the norm. That's to keep the farm just up.
just, I think it's bare minimum, really. I mean, well. Of course, I'm kind of, I have black ground over here, Shell, and
But I defer to John's judgment here, and I don't think it's bad to keep the soil in good shape. I mean, if we need to, it's our job.
yeah. And then additional $4,000.
And when we took over, deciding we were gonna buy fertilizer came with the responsibility of not doing it on the cheap.
Yep.
Well, and the fertilizer is a pass-through. We get the bids, we pay for it, and then they reimburse us,
Right.
whoever the tenant is, so.
Pass the
Right.
savings on to the customer.
And they always have the option to add more, but,
But when we make the decision, they're just paying the bill, so that's what I'm saying, we,
Right.
yeah, so,
It's doing correct judgment.
I mean, yeah, it's the balancing of, we wanna make sure we get enough on there, but we don't wanna throw a bunch on that's just gonna wash through, that's gonna waste their money either.
Correct.
What about the lime, you think we ought to?
I did not bid the lime because it's a lot easier to do lime in the fall of the year than it is the spring.
Did it need lime?
It did, it wasn't terrible bad out there. So between all the fields together, it's 135 ton.
Okay. 'Cause I know the past couple times, that it was good enough that it wasn't even
Yeah,
recommended.
and it's about the same this time. There's a couple that has slipped down a little bit, which were a little bit lower than the last time. But the way the soil test was taken this time was completely different than the prior testing company, which that did surprise me, seeing that. I would be honest with you guys, I bid that out first part of September, so that way, you know, whoever gets that has got time to do it in the fall of the year. Work around the schedule versus now in the spring of the year, you know, roads being toasted. Mother Nature, I mean, it's gotta be above 25 degrees, otherwise it freezes in the box of the truck coming over here.
Yeah, we'll just put it on our agenda for July, because just the way it works, it's 2 months to get anything done.
Right.
do we usually bid the lime in the fall?
Since I've been here,
Should, yeah.
it's always been included but never been needed. So,
Well, shall I make a motion?
well, Amanda went to get, so,
Alright, so while we're waiting, what's the price tag on that line, if you were to look at it today? Sorry to put you on the spot, but
No, you're fine.
I'd like to give us an idea.
nope.
Well, you want it broke out by the acre, you want it broke out by the ton, or? So, it's almost easier to break it out by the ton, just for the fact that who knows where that ton's gonna be on the varying, truckloads, so they're about 25.
$25 a ton,
Right.
and that's spread?
Spread, freight,
Okay.
line.
Okay. Well, I guess Amanda's back, so we can, if we,
What'd you find out?
she didn't find it.
So do you want John or somebody, sorry, I'll just put it on you, to make a motion to accept which bid, maybe the low bid, and then have a second motion to add on the recommended amount by what John spoke about?
Yeah,
I just wanna make sure we're correct with this.
That would probably be the cleanest way to do it, then we're accepting an actual bid and then
yeah,
going from there.
make a motion to accept the price, but to change the amount to 150 pounds an acre.
Well,
No, you can't accept the price if I add more to it.
Yeah, so,
Accept the price, and I'll make a
so,
motion then.
yeah, so we need to, so you're wanting to accept the bid with the modified potash rate,
Yes.
okay?
If you wanna give me 20 minutes or 35 or 30, I could go back to the office, I could text one of you guys last year's Rex, if you guys wanna discuss it off of that.
I don't think it
I
matters,
think,
Okay.
but thank you.
is there a second to the motion to accept the modified potash rate?
I'll second.
Go ahead, take the roll on that.
Ducat,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Barons.
Yes. Okay, now, do we want to then make a motion to, have the rate of the potash increase to 150 pounds per acre from 125, using the same rate?
Make the motion, go ahead.
I'm just
And
stating,
put the amount in there, the 52,320, is that gonna be
At final price of
the final price?
$52,320.
yeah,
At 150 per acre of potash?
so is that clear as mud to you?
Clear as mud.
Who made that motion?
Everybody.
Okay,
I'll second the motion.
I guess it was me and Paul.
Thirty-seven.
Ducat,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Barons.
Yes. Okay, so that will go to the full board. Go from there.
Yep, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you.
So this is the one. Maintenance supervisor report.
Is that right? Is that $25 a ton? Is he gonna be higher?
Stay up, see some all the way back here.
You'll have to speak up.
What?
Huh?
Over here at the administrative center, we had another good month over here, no heat pump issues, no boiler issues, anything of that nature. I did have some work done on the southeast entrance door. It's been giving us some problems for several months now. And I've taken some parts off of some other doors that aren't used as frequently to basically Band-Aid it for a while. But it has a system where you push the bar in and there's a rod that goes up and down, and that it was all worn out completely. So I had Bert from Italy and a lock come, and he put a whole new assembly on there that latches onto the door jamb itself, and it's much more secure and it's a lot easier to lock, and it's very nice. If you go in or out that door, you should take a look at it. It's a nice little unit he put on there. The break room, I spoke with Aerie Services about a week ago and told me that their goal is to do the work and hopefully have it completed in the month of February. So we'll see how that pans out. I'll keep you guys posted. Skip over to the courthouse and jail. Had an incident, quote unquote, over at the jail. It's Friday, January 7th. It was 7:30 in the evening, and I get a call from one of the correctional officers. I was down doing laundry, and he says, "Chris, you might want to come over here. It's raining in the basement." So I go over, and all those air handling units down there, my makeup air unit started leaking inside somewhere, and it was raining. Out the unit, all onto the unit below it. Everything was still running, so I go over and shut off the power because I didn't want to die. And I looked for, because all those units have isolation valves on them, they were gone. They were completely snapped off. The handles were non-existent. So apparently at some point in the past, I've never had a reason to shut the thing off. So I spent like about the next hour figuring out valves to shut off because it was the hot water loop. It doesn't provide air conditioning, it's just makeup air to the basement, and it does from time to time provide heat. So somewhere on that heating coil, something inside there sprung a leak, and I eventually got it to where it stopped leaking because it was backfeeding from other places and whatnot. The next morning at 7, I met Precision Piping. They came down and they cut those two 2-inch lines and unthreaded the pipe and put on 2 new ball valve shutoffs for me. And I told them to hold off. They were going to come back and disassemble and pull that core out and everything. And I told them to hold off on that because I looked into it a little bit. That unit doesn't run all the time anyway. It's only like here and there, and it'll be running. I pulled up the project prints, not to bore you all, but it's from 2001, all that was done down there. And I looked at the order of operations for all the units and everything, and it reads, air handler unit S6 shall be turned on by either of the following. 1, operation of either steam boiler. Well, the steam boilers haven't been used since 07. Or 2, operation of the basement diesel emergency power generator, which hasn't run for how many years? So instead of spending thousands of dollars potentially having them come and fix, possible if that heating core sprung a leak to have that brazed, whatever, I talked to Bob from up there, and he said, yeah, he goes, if you're not having any problems, he said, just don't run it. He goes, it turned into some sort of issue, maybe in the summer months or something. He's like, we can address it then, but for the time being, I'm just not running the unit. So I wanted to give you guys an update on that whole deal that happened. Had to have a little work done. It wouldn't be a year without the recovery air unit on the jail roof that pulls air out and provides fresh air for the inmates. It wasn't running. Breakers weren't tripped, and I thought it was a toasted a contactor because it has a knack for doing that, because once it gets really cold out, the condensation up in there, it'll just be wet inside that unit. And B&D came and we looked at it, and it was actually just a few fuses were blown, and so that's fine, it's running again. Had a couple small little snow events, little minor one of them actually caught us off guard. I went to bed last Sunday night and it said accumulations of less than 1/2 inch. My wife wakes me up at 5 a.m. and says, you might need to go to work. So I didn't have a chance to plow the lots. I came back the next morning and did those. We got the walks done and it all worked out. Lastly, 2 inspections, had our semi-annual generator service / inspections done. And also the elevator had its annual inspection, and they did a pressure test on it, and we're certified for another year on that. And, like I said, it was an overall good month, despite what I just told you. I think I only had, 5 claims this month, which could be a record. And 2 of them were ones that come every month. One of them was household supplies, the other was Angel Pest. So yeah, that is pretty much it. And I went over my 5-minute promise, so I apologize.
Let us slide this one.
Thank you.
Anybody got any questions for me?
Let me see. I didn't read it. I forgot to read it.
You go home too early and sleeping, or?
I have a paper.
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it could be a busy week weather-wise from what I'm seeing.
Maybe. He may just close the building.
That would make it easy.
They'll have to plow the snow. 911 doesn't close down.
Please move beyond an area so my people can get in the door. Please, thank you.
Good state guy too, just go and sleep in between the heating somewhere and take a nap. Don't get paid for it.
And the jail doesn't shut down either.
No.
The jail and
I'm being too
911.
optimistic to think I would close down anyway.
Okay, county farm management issues. Discussion and action on county farm tiling project. What do we know?
Well, I spoke with Jim Devine, and he agreed that we need to have some sort of a letter understanding with Joda Crabtree, who is the adjoining property owner to the west, where we'll be taking the tile through. And so in that letter of understanding, we're gonna have who would be responsible for maintenance of the outlet, and also I'm working with Chris Shires from Lebec to determine the specifications for the distance and the size of the tile. So I think by next month we'll have be able to put it out for bid.
Okay.
So he said it's a letter of understanding, it's not an easement, it's not a contract, it's just, is that well, Jim should know, I guess.
Are we going under the highway with that?
No, we're to hook on to it right at the highway, just west of the highway, and then go on over. So, what's east of the highway, I don't know much about, know anything about. But our problem at this point is everything west of the highway. And so once we get looking down the road, once we get the tile replaced and fixed and everything, then we can address that major waterway that's left exposed, get that fertilized down and seeded down, so then because that's nobody needs to be driving through that waterway and planting through it, and, so but we got to get the tile put in and done first.
And we talked about this, I remember, and we're gonna require a drawing, and we're gonna start a paper file for where tile is on.
Yes. Well, modern technology has been good in the respect that we've got GPS, and they can walk right over to it and find it, and they can print out tile maps, and aerial views, and all kinds of things.
I know we talked about that too, but.
So anyway, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Can you see it from an aerial view?
Huh?
Can you see it from an aerial view, like on Google, looking down at the top in the field?
Yeah, if you catch it like after a bean crop, depends kinda how far away it is, you know. And it might be not as easy to see in kinda sandier soil, you know. With heavy black dirt, you know, when you're bringing up clay, you can kinda see, you know, a little better. So anyway, we'll try to get that going for next meeting.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody got any other farm-related issues? We've already done fertilizer, so. Seeing none, discussion on animal control building. We were supposed to be opening bids today, but since every contractor that wanted to bid on it had more questions than we had answers, we're not opening bids today.
Well, you go ahead, Jim.
I just wanted to maybe go back just a little bit, you know, even though, something I'm not sure about, even though this Chris Shires is developing the specs for it, you know, we haven't accepted him as the bid holder.
Right.
And is it possible that we could maybe, if he wants money a little bit to kind of develop the specs or something, that we could compensate him on the side somehow, or, you know, it's not a big deal, I don't think, but.
But he is expending some effort and time on our behalf.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll just see.
John's opinion is no.
There's many examples of where vendors help in the writing of specifications and so forth and don't get any compensation for it.
Okay, all right,
Part of the way that they can get business is by.
yeah.
And depending on the circumstances, they're doing a service to the public in this case.
Mhm.
If the specifications are in the best interest of the land or the public, whatever the project is, so.
And on the animal control building, I mean, I got a list of, from one of the ones that's wanting to bid on it, we have another one here that has a list of things, so they are in effect helping.
Develop it.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Lou? Because I contacted a local guy on the south end, and he isn't gonna bid on it because he's not gonna hire an architect. He says that's our job.
Well,
And he said, I don't know what you people want. I don't know if you want a cinder block building, or if you want wood or a tent.
right. And
So I was
that's-
really disappointed.
Yeah, and that's part of the questions in this is, you know, our bid specs, and, you know, I should have been more involved in it, so, but yeah, I mean, we need to know, and just on here, what's the overall size of the building, what building construction do we want, and that's something we need to decide, what do we want? Do we want a block building, do we want a steel building, do we want a framed building? You know, what kind of look do we want?
Well, are we gonna hire an architect? And then the second question I have is, are we still talking about Bill Cheatham's cooler, and are we still talking about sticking that on the end? Oh,
I
those
don't believe
blank
in,
stares, those
yeah,
blank
I-
looks
I
scared me to
I
death.
don't believe I remember anybody bringing up a cooler for,
Bill brought it up at a meeting. What meeting was it?
Is it open?
okay,
But we don't have an actual app
Right,
yet.
yes, it's-
But we're also talking about ARPA for the dog
Mhm.
kennel, or pound, or whatever we're calling, animal control building, I guess.
this is news to me, so. I guess,
What's the purpose of the cooler?
Well, it's a big, long story about the history of morgues and what elevators won't work at the hospital and where we take bodies, and how recently we had a body that nobody wanted to take, and Bill would like to have a little freestanding cooler morgue kind of situation where he can take a body. We talk about more gross stuff after the meeting. We used to have one, when Phyllis Jameson was the coroner, there was one out at the highway department that stood by it was a freestanding building. Sometimes snaps will hold a body, sometimes they're at Kankakee, we pay them morgue fees. And that's generally where we have the pathology done, but unfortunately the circumstances are sometimes they get a body that just is not in good shape and creates a problem. I know these are the ins and outs of everyday coroner life, we don't, specifically that fellow on the tanker.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take him a lot of places, and he ended up Champaign Valley.
Okay, so,
Back to the animal control bill.
and the thought was that could be just added onto the building?
It was just vaguely talked about for 10 seconds.
Well, I mean, to
But
add another room to a building is a lot cheaper than to building another building, if it can be incorporated.
Jill, and we can't have animal and human mixed, so
Even if there was a dividing wall.
you can do that, right, Jill? So you can speak up and say what you know here.
Yeah,
Am I on point here?
yeah, it was discussed, I don't think anything was taken any further with this, with coroner's request with the morgue. It could be added on, as long as there was proper ventilation and whatnot. And this is according to Bill, and he would know more about that than I would. There's a lot more regulations with human, versus the animal, but,
And two
There's
separate
a-
entrances.
what's that?
And with two separate entrances.
Right,
I mean, the
right.
building's
They
just gonna
essentially
join.
we want one
They're-
building, two separate.
Can they share plumbing walls?
I think so, but that, again, Bill would have to verify that, cause.
Well, we might have to get animal control and coroner working together for the purposes of our.
And the other thing is if there's enough room out there to do that, cause originally we were just talking the animal control building.
There's a couple 100 acres, there's plenty of room. I don't know, we do have an architect in the room, or do you have any insights on? Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure, I'm Larry Mahoney. I'm working with TNT Construction and in response to your request for proposal. We looked at it really carefully, and before you hire an architect, I would go through your list, and I've given Jill a checklist more or less of things that need to be responded to, and it would help you build a scope for what you're actually looking for. And I'll help you a little bit there too.
Who's TNT Construction?
They're in
It's Ted Heidemann, and Ted and Jody used to be partners.
And that's the list that I had emailed, and I believe Lyle, you have a copy with you.
No, what I have is actually from a different,
Oh,
contractor.
it's different, yeah, okay. I had forwarded the email to the committee.
So, I mean, I guess it comes back to, a lot of this is stuff that is gonna be kind of sit down with the, head warden and see what their preference is as far as, do we build the kennel solid, or do we get cage kennels that are off the ground, things like that. As far as, what's gonna be easier to work with, clean and stuff like that. But the type of building, I mean, do we want a block building out there? Do we want a stick frame building that's lined in the inside that's easily washed? Even a block building is gonna have to be painted with the right kind of paint on the inside order to be durable, and even that's gonna have to be repainted at times, so, you know, what,
Insulation's hard too.
right,
For the,
You've got some pretty expensive finishes regardless of what you do. I would start with your scope of the building and start letting the scope start determining the type of building. It needs to be very cleanable, and masonry generally holds up better. And under the long term, it's a little more economical, but it can be done with wood frame too. But I would concentrate on your scope of in square footage. That was our biggest question, was that there was a contradiction in your request for proposal and the extension of all of the spaces. And I think there was another question that, are these open spaces? Some of them can be open spaces, some of them need to be closed spaces, but it wasn't clear as to what was what.
and what type of heating system do we want? We gotta have proper ventilation. You know, there are quarantine rooms, so I would think that those areas would need to have negative pressure ventilation that vents to the outside, so that you're not transferring disease within the building.
have we looked at anyone else's animal control building?
We have not, but, Silver Brothers had done the one in Houston, and he said that he'd go down with some of us if we wanted to look that over. Cause he had done some work down there. And one thing that he said is that, you know, they must have not put in the trough drains, and he said that he'd recommend that as something to do.
Is that their animal control, or did he do, is he talking about eye care? That's a cement block building, used to be a vet's office.
That I'm not sure,
Not
he just
sure.
said down there, kennel, so.
Poston, I believe it's the animal control, the heart.
Heart is their animal that's the building I'm thinking of then. It's a cement block building, you know, and you're recommending masonry, cement block, kind of?
I'd like to see more, that's my general inclination, but I'd like to see a little bit more with
Sure,
a
what
little
we're
more
talking about.
detail, right? Ted did, County West in Kankakee, and that's more of a wood frame building, so you would have an opportunity there to look at something.
I sort of think we need to look at some buildings, probably, and take animal control with us. Oh, my.
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
Probably
It's a
get it
very
done
big
in
deal.
5 years.
Yeah,
well,
so I'm gonna cut to it. Larry, as an architect, what would you think it would be a price to hire someone such as you to go ahead and oversee this, to make sure that it would be done correctly?
I would look at it in two different elements. There's a space planning and scope development. That could be one component or one phase. Then there's a construction document phase. That could be a separate thing. But I think you could be looking at how has anybody looked at the square footages that we looked at? You were originally talking about 1,200, and I was coming up with like 2,200.
yeah, I never added everything up, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at 2,200, what Paul said,
You're probably looking at $25,000, $30,000.
in architectural fees.
Right.
You have to bid that out.
I think we're going in the wrong direction.
Well,
Wow.
yeah,
Jill has acquired some information on companies that do this work. Why don't we be dealing with them? They know what's best. They have plans that we can choose
Well,
from. And
He's
so
dealing with a company that's done work, these guys have done work, both of them have questions for us. So we gotta get the questions answered. So, I mean,
You still need to go through that process of developing a scope, no matter
I don't agree.
who you went through.
Can we get the plans from one of these, already done?
we probably can,
I mean, they're public places, I guess.
yeah.
And see if that is their approval.
I mean,
Well, what I see is the problem is time and everything else, just like John is doing for the farm. He's going out, he's expending a lot of hours meeting with people hands-on, and that's sort of what needs to happen here. I think what John's suggesting is we just find somebody who does this and turn the project over to them, and we get a building in the backyard. But
But even that, they
That's
want
not exactly
parameters.
what I'm recommending, Don, it's similar.
similar, so,
If
and,
you have, if I may, to help you out, if you have two companies that do this kind of work and wanna make a presentation on how they think it should be done based on the information we're giving them, I think that's a good way to proceed.
Well,
And we
it's-
can choose from what they're recommending or make modifications as we so desire. I don't think this thing needs to be so complicated.
are
But even
those Iroquois County companies? Are those Iroquois County companies?
No, I don't believe they are. I'm not sure. Jill can tell you where they're from.
One was not, and one, well, they're both mainly located outside of Iroquois County. The one, I guess I don't know, he's a part owner, lives in Iroquois County.
Well, I mean, bids were supposed to be in today. I don't know that I've talked to either one of those, and no bids came in because there wasn't enough information for them to even,
The companies
Both
that Jill
themselves,
found,
yeah.
we asked them to bid on it and they refused.
I got at least 4 phone calls from different contractors.
Are these the
requesting
companies
more.
that Jill got the information?
I don't know the names of those companies.
And this is the first I've heard that was an option.
So,
It's kind of, the reason I'm suggesting this is because it's kind of a specialized building that we're talking about to meet a specific purpose. And the companies that Jill got information from are companies that have experience in this type of thing, and they have things pretty well laid out, from what I could see.
You mean they've already given us recommendations
No.
that they're?
no, they have worked on these types of projects.
We haven't
Well,
gotten
he
that.
said they're already laid out from what he could
They
see.
have information that you can look at that's already laid out, yes. They haven't,
Both companies similar to, what Mr. Maloney you're talking about, both have had experience in building kennels.
But TNT has worked on a kennel, Silver Brothers have worked on a kennel, so.
Right. And the companies that originally got in contact with me, through Paul were SCI and, PSI.
STI and PSI?
SCI, and then, PSI.
Didn't hear anything from Horton over here?
I know he was out. I haven't heard anything in particular from Cameron, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He,
I know he was out. I didn't have a conversation with him, no.
he might have been one of them that called me
Yeah,
wanting more information. So,
they have plans on the books, you know, they're
yeah,
similar. to what we-
but, you know, the scope of the project is what we need to come up with, you know, so. All right. Well, I guess at this point, I will work on this. Is there anybody else that would like to be involved in it?
Keep going on
Huh?
it. I'll keep going on it.
Well, and if we can get together with Linda or somebody to go to some of these sites, maybe we'll do that.
I'd go with to visit a site, but my plate's pretty full right now.
Well, yeah, and with the weather this week, that's gonna,
Slow things down even
Yeah.
more.
Who'd be a contact County West? You know anybody, Larry, offhand?
Not off the top of my head, but Ted does, a good contact person. And I think we can talk to Kankakee County because they're going through a process of upgrading theirs. I can't remember what the status of that is. But I can certainly find out. And they've had one for a number of years, and it's a little bit on the small side.
I talked to, Carrie Laird up there at Kankakee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they going forward with the new?
I haven't, talked to her so much about that, it's been basically on the Elm side, she's
Yeah.
been helping me out quite a bit with that, so.
you have a question, Donna?
They're really good.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing
I
with
also
her.
think we probably need to talk to Bill and see what he's really thinking.
I heard
Because
substantial.
if that's
Yeah.
a possibility at all with ARPA funds, we need to consider that from the get-go.
Right, yeah, and, yeah, I did not know ARPA funds might be involved, so I don't know what the requirements are there.
Perhaps I'm mistaken, but I understood that there would be an application forthcoming for this project.
Well,
Maybe.
There will be, but I was kinda waiting to see what kind of ballpark we were gonna be in.
Sure, I understand. Well, you can't ask for something when you don't know what you need to ask
Right.
for.
and one of the questions was, who's gonna do the utilities? You know, we do have water and sewer over here, but the electrical is over here, it's gotta get brought around. And so, you know, that's something that we need to,
You're looking at a really serious number for the utilities.
Really?
That's what our conversation pretty much centered around. I would identify those issues. Would you contemplate moving the building to the northeast corner? That was considerably cheaper, right?
I mean, what does that do for our sewer line? Chris?
That's the only thing we'd have to relocate. Almost everything was on the north side of the building, with the exception of the sanitary, and we'd have to extend that. And it looks like you have plenty of elevation to do that.
I mean, whether it's on that corner or that corner matters.
I would look at
very
both,
little.
but I'm just suggesting looking at.
Is there a reason, Jill, you like the southeast corner better? Makes no difference, you don't see?
I know we went on
Things
top.
university, we just have to check the zoning again, you know, cause Bob pays for over there, we just have to check.
Well, I guess there's always the idea that that's right outside the 911 door and there are.
Oh, yeah.
Once you're back here, doesn't make a difference where it goes.
I mean, it doesn't
Somebody
make no
get their
difference to us,
blessing.
no.
You'd have to have security and
Sure.
cameras and alarms and everything anyway, so. And that impacted the farmers' row cropping patterns a little less over there than it did over
Yeah.
here. And that was, in my mind, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It's good.
Correct me, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
If we're talking the corner over here.
Yeah.
Are we, like, you're going east of the row of trees, correct?
In my mind, it was on the south side of the tree.
If we go on the northeast corner over here that we're talking about, so are we going on the east side of the trees, is that where it's going, or is it like literally going in the parking lot here?
Well, I don't think we're gonna literally go in the parking lot.
Cause that's a question I couldn't answer for Larry
Yeah.
earlier last week when we were speaking, I didn't even know the exact location of where.
And you've got some drainage issues in both locations, but that seemed to be, without putting a laser on it or anything, that seemed to be a little more amenable to developing as opposed to that over there. No, I would just look at both of them. I think keep your options open, but
That's really good.
just the electrical alone was something like $20,000 or $25,000
Ooh,
less.
that's not significant.
And all of your teledata and everything was over here, I believe, correct? Wasn't it in this corner that it came into the building?
No, I think it's on this side.
We've got, I know we've got a fiber optic line that runs on this side goes into
Okay.
our server room, so I think you're kind of surrounded by,
Yeah, you might be getting it from both ends.
so I think you're gonna get hit by both sides, no
You
matter
could-
where you.
That would be easy to go through the building.
Yeah.
If need be, you wouldn't have to board or anything, I guess is what I'm.
You have either way, you have telecommunications lines on both sides of the building, so you're gonna have to figure out where all of that is, because I know over here, that is our lines, so if there is anything that goes over there, we're the entities responsible for making sure that when there's digging, we want them.
And that's something that maybe we should.
I will donate some time to help you put a scope together. If that helps you, if we could get it done in 2 or 3 meetings. I've got a full plate this week, but, and I think that, like everybody's saying, the weather's gonna be crap anyway, so I don't know if it'd be possible to get together, but if you can afford a couple of meetings, let it be an hour-long meeting, and we'll start going through a list, and I'll help you.
Well, you're in Clifton, right?
Right.
Yeah, so, I mean, that,
I'm over here 2 or 3 times a week anyway, so.
well, I guess it depends on who all would wanna be involved.
So that should be step one, get our scope defined.
I mean, I can meet with him at some point to just kind of figure things out. Maybe we need to get Julie back here just to see where everything is.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't cost us anything.
Well, and maybe on both sides of the coin, maybe we should talk to these companies, maybe they should come in and say, this is what we can do, this is what you need, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that's the right questions, but we're clearly,
Typically, everybody's gonna have to go through that same exercise of developing a scope.
okay,
There's not gonna be a one-size-fits-all,
okay.
or even 2 or 3 sizes fits all. Somebody's gonna have to go through.
So that would be step 2 after we got the scope defined. Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we get off square one? How do we move this forward?
There's no magic bullet, you just gotta sit down and
Do the work.
do the work.
Ideally, it'd be nice to get something built next summer, but, you know, kind of in a pickle here.
Do you have the budget for this?
We have somewhat of a budget, but when you start talking $20,000 for utilities, I don't know what that does to our budget.
That was only one thing.
Right.
You've got 4 things like that. And, I think you had, I'm going backwards, but you were looking at maybe $180 a square foot. That's a legitimate number. That is in the ballpark, actually 109, closer to 190. But I don't know that that would cover all of the utility issues and site drainage and things like that. And I think you were only looking at maybe 1,200 square feet initially. And like I said, I'm up at like 2,200 square feet.
And
And I'll be honest, I don't know if I understood. That's why we needed to have a conversation to see if I was on track or not.
1,200 is more than enough.
at 2,200, we're looking at $418,000, not including the utility, the electrical.
Potentially. And it depends on the building type
Well, we
and
were
things like
talking
that.
around 1,000 initially, and 1,200 would be more than enough.
He added up the figures that were in here, and, yeah, they don't add up.
I also wonder if the utilities are gonna be a big expense item here, if we shouldn't, and then some of these other issues that maybe we shouldn't take another look at over by the maintenance shed.
Well,
300,000, 1,200 square feet.
I I got 228
Well,
plus
adding on
you're adding
utilities,
on
I still
utilities.
think, you know,
That's a lot more than what we
regardless
initially
of
thought.
location, it has a lot of.
I think we did 300,000.
Unless I'm grossly misunderstanding something, and I couldn't get anything to work in 11 or 1200.
Yeah,
All of the stuff that you had in there.
right, I was
Is
kinda,
anybody available to me Tuesday after the meeting?
next Tuesday?
What's the,
Oh.
what's the date?
Mr. Mahoney's willing to donate some of his time, might be worth. It's the board meeting.
I think I can, but if I can't, you should all, I think, what's the date again for the next meeting? 8th. Okay, the 8th. I think I am. Huh?
February
After, would that be after lunch?
8th, my 25th wedding anniversary.
Well, you're out. You'll be buying roses and candy.
I would probably bring it.
What time?
Well,
Oh.
I can, I'll just make time to be there. I mean,
What time is your meeting?
it starts at 9, usually is over by 11, unless John gets long-winded.
So if I come over at 11, does that
That would probably be pretty close then,
come a few minutes early in case?
yeah.
10:30.
Okay.
Last meeting was over before 10.
So we got a meeting here at 10:30.
You told me you had to go out there.
For,
Yeah,
to meet
still
with
didn't get
Mr.
on there.
Mahoney.
Well, that wasn't my fault. I had the meeting done with.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just have a informal meeting with, Mr. Mahoney. I don't want to call it an actual committee meeting or anything at this point, do we?
Well, how are you gonna have the whole committee here and not publish it?
It's an open meeting situation.
Okay, fine.
You'd be in trouble.
Then y'all can't come.
Well, I'll stay home, I'll go home. You know, that's simple enough. I'll do
I
my
guess we
part.
can publish it and we'll have it in here.
And would somebody please talk to Bill and say, maybe Bill should come to this meeting? I don't know. Maybe would that be part of the scope? I mean,
Would you like me to just give him a call?
Cause that's when it's not. Anywhere from a half-inch to 18 inches.
maybe somebody should tell him you're
That's
expecting a call, to expect your call. Do you have any,
I've got him on my phone.
you do?
Yeah.
Go ahead and call.
Okay,
And that's a definite maybe.
Correct.
Is that, am I reading that properly?
Correct. It's a definite
I got
maybe.
interrupted when I was. first
He
going.
stood here and maybe threw that out for 10 seconds. It was at an ARPA meeting. Right. Well, it was longer than 10 seconds. He really went into the detail with some of the problems. It was kind of, but we, yeah, okay. Thank you.
What else would you like me to be prepared to discuss? Anything that you can think of off the top of your head now? I think your list is legitimate. In my mind, I would start with your list and discuss how and where those, how that evolved. And if they're legitimate, what can come, what can go.
I can see this going over budget really quickly.
Well, this is a very, John is right, this is a specialty building, and
it feels like square footage is going to dictate this, and I don't have any feel for space.
$12 pound.
Do you have records on intake and adoptions and things like that?
Jill, we
Just
don't
us four.
adopt.
We don't do.
But I mean, putting out for.
Yeah,
Jill has.
we have a
Well,
rough number,
75, oh, you know, I know
and
why.
I come up
Runs
with,
in that.
Is that how some of these numbers were
Tons of
arrived at?
yes, and,
I sense
they
that
were
your
shot a little high, but
Well,
we're just
future-
planning
you
for
have some
future,
growth,
yeah,
right.
future growth. And some
I'm
of
not
those,
criticizing your numbers, I think they're probably right.
Right.
It's just that the
Fitting in
extensions
the-
of the numbers weren't
understandable, yeah,
consistent.
yeah, and some of those, like I said, it was just, I was trying to research different, different things and,
So is he considering
yeah,
for
as far as
75
dollars
times
with
4?
the space, and some of those.
This is what went out in the bid packet.
Right.
So,
Well, if that was the confusion, there's 4 of them here. I think in each one was 75 square feet.
It'd be tough to get.
Because 100 square foot's only 10 by 10.
Right.
Yeah, but we also, if
So,
we could take a look at. maybe
is that
reducing
confusion, you think?
sizes,
Well, we got different numbers? See where I'm going?
That's a town where you can exercise.
Yeah, and generally,
Start adding up,
the intake has
and
been
these are not
ten animals,
10,
well, 10 dogs, and
It was
we have
150.
not been keeping
These
any cats.
people
We
that
don't
do
have to put them right now, but prior to that,
This one, something's not-
again, we only have roughly 10
From the
months
outside,
of
I don't
data
think it's
for
square footage
review,
of the
animal control requirement.
Well, if you're gonna do kennels,
And that's the other thing, there's
We
a,
kept about 7.
the Animal Control Act is,
that's where you got screwed up there.
Yes,
Air.
is
it's
big.
So this
Big.
guy-
Exhaust,
Yeah.
I think air.
a lot to
what
it.
I looked
I
at
may have missed something, I don't
in
know.
this that Jill
Honestly,
gave,
There was a,
It is,
it says
Built.
9,400
there was a building,
The other thing that's on the note is that
For one kennel.
I think it's 1,400 north.
and
Before you
they
get to the
were
road.
over there just for your
Yeah,
kennel.
Right here is
Just
cats.
400, do you remember?
oh, it's
Kennel.
their, it's
and
their,
nuts are
and they're not
quite
the.
And that,
it's
So we'll get
research
that
there
20.
for
that's
cats.
no office, that's not cats, that's not storage, that's not hallways,
They're not
that's
there
not
anymore.
bathrooms.
Still there. How much is
My
it?
main thing is I don't really
75
like
square feet.
concrete floors. I think that's an absolute.
Well, in here it said 9,
So I don't know, 5 foot
Really
wide,
try to
10
stay
foot
with
long.
stainless
well,
steel.
in here it says 90 to 100 square foot
At least for
in
cats.
inside.
So we would just have to.
walls.
I don't know if it's
Yeah, I
gonna
think
sell it.
it's very
I don't know where you're gonna find kennels.
Very durable, very
Well,
resistant.
what I saw online didn't look that
It has
good.
the drains.
Again, we can be flexible on the
Most-
numbers.
Well, private
I mean,
individuals
you
have
can't,
much smaller
you
than
can't,
that.
And that's
When I
where,
recall,
Right, exactly.
for Vermillion County
Exactly.
shelter where I've been, I think 5 by 10 was.
No, it wasn't.
and that's where it would be helpful to go down there and get our
Right
figures.
there's, they probably understood more like 4 by 10.
No, like I said, I'm not, we could either way.
Sorry,
Because he'd come into
It's-
the
Kennel
zone,
is supposed to be a place for dogs to lay down.
he was,
If you have an outside one where you can go out to relieve
he did
himself.
that
Because
statute,
otherwise
I need to read straight from it.
Well,
I don't
those,
know.
the way this was laid out,
The one that the county raised, they have people that take the dog outside
right,
for a little walk and then they leave it back in the kennel.
The way society is, and their pets are part of their family and all of this crap, it's only gonna
all right. Well,
get exotic.
why don't we just,
Yeah.
That's the confusion. I can see it already.
we'll get our ducks in a row and meet next Tuesday. And if we have any questions, we'll try to let you know in advance that you can prepare. If we get an opportunity to go down or to one of these other locations.
Well, there's
they
not gonna
invite-
be an opportunity, we're gonna have to plan it, schedule it, make it happen if that's what we want.
Well, I'm not sure when their hours and,
Well, and any individual that is willing to go look at those, I've spoken to several in the shelter, around us, and anyone's more than amenable to showing you around.
Well, and it's 12 miles from my front door, so if somebody wants to meet me and go with me, I don't think I'm not willing to go alone and report back. I'd like to have two sets of eyes, look at, this is what we saw. Maybe they'd allow us to snap a few pictures on our phone and say, this looked really nice, or I don't know about this, you know.
Is the one in Hoopston animal control or is it a shelter?
I thought it was a shelter. Jill says it's animal control.
I think they utilize it for animal control, kind of similar than that.
Because Vermillion County Animal Control is in Danville.
Well, actually, there's two. I think she's correct. I think they have two facilities. The courthouse is also in Danville, but there used to be court in Hoopston too. So, it's something that's easily found out.
Yeah.
And I do know that previously it was Dr. Knight's vet office. You know, we had Dr. Knight with a K in Hoopston, Dr. Day with a, in Iroquois, in Watsika.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of cute, didn't I?
I'll find out too, if we can go to County West, see
Thank you.
what that availability is.
Okay, Tuesday,
Um,
10:30.
yeah, we'll meet here Tuesday, 10:30. I say we could set a date to go do this, but first we gotta find out when they're available and what the weather's gonna be.
I would say I'm leaving the 22nd of February and I'll be back March 1st. And I know Paul's leaving town too. So between the 8th, actually I'm leaving town on the 21st. So between the 8th and the 21st.
I'm leaving the 22nd, so.
Oh, well, are you going south?
Yeah.
You might be on the American?
No.
Well, it sounds like
So
they're
you two
going
are
to.
going to Florida together.
Okay.
Big mouth.
You went to Mexico with her.
Yeah.
I get around.
Yeah. Okay, so we will have a meeting. Let's say at 11 o'clock, that way if the full board meeting does run over,
Publish it at 11.
yeah. And it'd be nice to get started at 10:30, but I don't wanna have that published and then not be able to do it.
Why? If you say 10:30 and I can't get to it till 11, that's not a problem, but if you say 11 and get done at 10:30, you can't start before 11.
Okay, fine, publish it at 10:30.
I think you're better off go for 10:30.
But we might start late because I might need to go to the bathroom.
I mean, we do that, for example, with Health and Tax Committee, they meet back to back, but a lot of times Health Committee goes over and
If
Tax
I-
Committee starts late. When the Health Committee's done early, then everybody sits around till.
If everybody would have their calendars or have in mind what dates between the 8th and the 22nd, at the time we meet with Mr. Mahoney, that would be beneficial for those who want to participate. Know what you're doing when you're available.
After the first meeting, I will get enough information out of that conversation, I think, to do a quick space plan so that the following meeting, you can have something to look at
Thank you very
regarding
much.
the space adjacencies, and that would be a good time to maybe bring in, you know, some of your animal control people, just so they can critique it and tear it up.
I already verified with Linda, she'll be here on Tuesday.
Okay,
Thank you. And then after we have that scope, then do we want to take a look at these two companies that John makes reference to
well,
and see
what, once the problem with all of the contractors was we didn't really have a scope of the project for them to go off of. So once we get that established, then basically we can put it out for bid.
I'm reluctant to say bid. A better term would be design, build, proposal.
Okay.
Because then you can come back with you might come back with something even better. When you bid something, everything pretty much has to be clearly and distinctly described, every nut and bolt. And you can do that in letter form without a drawing, but it's difficult. Most of these guys are looking for drawings. Not most of them, every one of them is looking for drawings.
So when you put out for design and, how did you say that?
Design build.
Design build, they might come back with a better idea.
There's a possibility. Depends who's getting it. And I'm not necessarily recommending that, by the way, but that is an option. I think as a public board, you're better off to go out for bids. You have a little less criticism.
That's sort of what I'm mulling over in my mind.
Right.
Can we even do that legally? We're a government entity, we have to.
You can, but you end up with a little more criticism, with the potential for a little more criticism. That's from my experience.
Sure.
Okay. Well, then we'll reconvene on this after the board meeting. We will move on.
Bring dates that you're available to visit, if you wanna do that, if we still wanna do that. Okay.
Moving on to claims. Everybody should have been sent the claims. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the claims?
Second.
Paul and Paul.
Ducat,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Crowe,
Yes.
Zumwalt,
Yes.
Barons,
Yes. Is there any old business? Any new business? Mr. Ducal, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Did you say two?
Yes. Huh?